Hey, soul survivors, we're going to talk about the emotional age of the narcissist, also why they react the way that they do, and what's going on in their brain. So, this is a viewer topic request. So, if this is uncomfortable for you, if it's a trigger, you can I guess watch a different video. But I hope you guys stay here because we're going to talk about how they rage and how they can sometimes get physically violent. And sometimes that violence can even cause them to kill the person that they're with. Why does this happen? So I just did a different video on like the brain stuff that happens with them. So now we're going to talk about the emotional age. And a lot of you know that I'm a teacher, and you can see developmental progress in the children. Babies cry and scream and kick, and then toddlers they scratch and bite, and there's different milestones that a child goes through, and that's how they learn to navigate their way through life, and they're taught that, and their brain adjusts to it and it becomes a part of themselves. So, as the narcissist was growing up, there was something that caused them to get stuck in a certain age to where they just shut down, and that became their coping mechanism. And the brain continues to grow to age 25, 28, but they are not building upon, just like reading, you got to build upon things, and the more you build upon it, the more fluent you get. So the narcissist, they if they become physical and are unable, they have anger management issues, they are easily triggered, and things that go on inside the brain are what causes them to either black out or to act impulsively or utilize manipulation. But it's really interesting on how the brain chemicals work. I know for myself, when I get frustrated, I cry. It's almost like I can't help it. I just cry. I can sit there and still talk to you. Sometimes I get choked up, but it's real hard to stop, and sometimes you need a cool down time. A narcissist, when they get in that rage state, that there's no bringing them back from that until they bring themselves out of it. So when it gets so heightened that it's too hard for them to calm themselves down, they haven't learned coping skills. So with the aggression is going to come out based on their mental age that they're at. And the first 6 to 8 years are vital. And, if you know your person, what's their story? What's their story with their home life? It's amazing how many the young students are traumatized. And the ones that are in unhealthy situations, sometimes they're adverse childhood experiences known as ACE or ACE, that it affects them and it traumatizes them. And they're more likely to act out, they're more likely to zone out or lack in their education. And when you're dealing with a grown person who's either narcissistic or suffering from some type of a mental illness or trauma, that the brain reacts differently, and it's going to cause either the narcissist or ourselves to react in a different way that might not be how we would normally handle it. So the truth of the person comes out during difficult situations, whether it's stressful or uncomfortable. Some people will deal with it. They will have a communication with you. Like we could have a communication. I might cry. I might apologize. Like, look, I'm trying not to cry, but this is what I'm feeling. Do we need to apologize for feeling what we're feeling? Sometimes it does make the other person uncomfortable, but when they become so agitated, and the hard part is it's not even always your fault. A lot of times it's not. You didn't do anything wrong, but they got agitated from an outside factor. Narcissists, their triggers are from the outside. A borderline, it'll be triggered inside. That, for a borderline, let's say nothing is going wrong, but all of a sudden they just get upset and they kind of take it out on you. But a narcissist usually gets triggered by something on the outside, something that causes them to feel shame or not good enough. And they create this image that they're entitled, they're worthy, or it's the opposite where they're super vulnerable. But lashing out is just the brain stage, the brain stage. And, how do you change that brain stage? Just like with the CPTSD that we went through, that we have to readjust our brain now. And it's difficult, it's uncomfortable, it's hard to do, but it's worth it. But the narcissists, they won't take the time. Plus, it's harder to learn new things as you get older, such as like a new language. It's a lot easier as a child. So it's a lot easier for a child to stay on track and change their brain so they can be in society. It is a learning process. But, as a child, possibly, these actions that they do are a survival mode because they can't utilize their words. So their communication is based on the crying or getting really upset, throwing temper tantrums. They're trying to communicate something that they verbally can't. So the narcissist, when they can't verbally say what is on their mind, that's why you get the silent treatment, the ghosting. You see kids hiding or not speaking. It's so interesting to me that the narcissist, their reactions to things, their impulsivity, instant gratification, not thinking about the other person, it's where they're at. But, a child was most likely created in that sense to communicate because that was their only way to communicate. How do you know the baby's hungry? The baby's crying. How do you know the baby's uncomfortable? They have their cries are a little bit different. A lot of parents can know that's this kind of cry. But when the narcissist starts getting physical, it gets to a state where it's really hard for them to start controlling it. And they do it to exert dominance or to avoid shame. But the thing is, on my viewer topic was, how can it get so bad that they'll even kill the person? So narcissists are manipulators and conniving. It's all about the narcissist. So there are times, let's say during a divorce, they don't want to give up their half of the money. They don't want to have the outside judgments of family or coworkers. So they will, do something. They'll set up an accident or think that they can get away with poisoning somebody or things like that. That, are they really looking at the consequences? Are they looking at how intelligent what they were going to do really was? And it's all about them, their finances, their this, their that. That if they cared about the person, they would discuss it and say it's just not working. The thing about a narcissist is it is so dangerous because a lot of times we don't know when the triggers are and it could come out of nowhere. And it gets to a point that we start walking on eggshells. Sometimes we become isolated and financially dependent upon them. They can set things up on purpose to kind of trap us, or pregnancies can be put upon you And it becomes toxic because it's an altered reality. And we can't figure out how to handle it, how to fix it, how to change it, because our information is based on lies. And with the gaslighting, it starts to make you crazy, starts to make you wonder, are you in the wrong? And so then a lot of us, if we're carrying people, we feel bad. So now we want to make it better. And it's just this vicious cycle to where when it gets to that point, we're taken advantage of more because the narcissist sees that we're willing to do a lot. And they kind of go into that overdrive, that little dopamine hit. And when things don't go the way that they want, they can become physically harmful. And that's why it's important to understand where somebody is emotionally, because intellectually, a narcissist is extremely smart a lot of the times, but they are so unpredictable, and they can leave at the drop of a hat. They go through those narcissistic cycles where they discard and get back together and discard and get back together, or almost break up, and it causes a trauma bond. But some narcissists can be trauma bonded, but not as likely because they don't connect with the person that they're with. So how do we move on? And is it safe to stay? If you stay with somebody who's always going to gaslight you, possibly cheat on you, and have no regard for your needs, the less regard that they have, the easier it will be for them to hurt you. And, if they start throwing things, those are red flags. It's almost like a gateway in a sense to where, you know, uh, they'll test the waters. And, there are times it just comes out of the blue. And being with a narcissist is very, very scary because, I don't know if this person was a narcissist. They were a teenager. I just saw something on Facebook about, it was a profile picture, and somebody like laughed at it with an emoji, and it led to a murder. It led to a murder because, you know, um, some people, they get their feelings hurt. They can't handle it. And the narcissist, what is their ability to cope? So they're going to revert back to that childlike state, aggression or screaming. And it's very unsettling because it's unpredictable. Adults can be extremely strong, male or female, to where a punch from them is going to be a lot harder than a punch from a 2-year-old, that it can cause great bodily injury. And, with the impulsivity, the lack of thinking things through, the availability of guns, that mental health matters in how situations are going to be handled. So there are certain narcissists that, might, I don't know, marry an old rich lady and, not give her the medication like she should have, or it's all a master plan sometimes. So be careful on large age differences. It's not always going to be somebody out to get the other person, but the narcissist is a narcissist is on a spectrum. Some are excessively greedy, and others are just very greedy, very cold and calculating. But sometimes too, it's just that they don't have the proper skills to reflect inward. And part of that is because of where their brain is at. So it's not that they just didn't learn proper communication. They learned how to manipulate, and that's who they've become. And based on their trauma, that it's almost ingrained in them that their comfort level is something that is not comfortable for us. It's something that's not safe. They're in control of the situation. They don't give us any control. So we're at the mercy of them, but they don't show any mercy. And they'll take their victims, they'll change us. Some of us start doing reactive abuse that is outside of our character, or kind of going in desperation mode where we're seen as a crazy one, trying like crazy, scrambling to make things work or communicate. And it's extremely hurtful the way the narcissist deals with it. So a 2 or 3 year old, sometimes a little older too, they'll be like, I hate you. I hate you. And it's a child. It's a child. So we overlook that. I mean, it might hurt us a little bit, but it's a child. They just don't know exactly what they're saying. They're just angry in the moment. But when we hear that from an adult, somebody who should be at a more emotionally mature stage, we take it to heart. And, you know, if your life partner is like, I hate you, that gets you wondering. And, you know, it's a lack of connection inside their brain. So if somebody is physically abusive, you got to think about how they're going to react in the future. You know, if it was a healthy adult who did something wrong, we all make mistakes, but the healthy adult will reflect, they'll feel guilty, they'll feel terrible about it and want to make it better. But the narcissist is going to get mad at you for pointing it out. It's a whole different shift. So the most important part is staying safe. If you can't feel safe in your life, it's going to lead to increased anxiety, health problems, lack of sleep, destroyed relationships with people who really do care about you. It's going to shift your energy. And that's why you feel so drained sometimes, that it does take time to rebuild that energy. But once you do, you're going to get back to being in your vibe. But the narcissist will always suck it from you because it's uncomfortable walking on eggshells, always thinking, how do I say this? You know, things usually get worse. They don't usually get better. So that's something to think about, especially if they're not willing to talk to you and change. We can only change ourselves, and we have to realize, are we in a wise situation? Because we're our best protector. We can make a move. Something to think about. One-on-ones are available. Topic requests are welcome, and I'll see you in the next video.